Hello. Call to order the meeting of the Greater Boca Raton Beach and Park District, regular meeting, May 2nd at 5:15. Joanne, can we do the roll call?
Commissioner Ernst,
Yes.
Commissioner Engel, Commissioner Rollins, Commissioner Vogelsang,
Yes.
and Commissioner Wright.
And do we have any changes to the agenda? Nope. Any public requests?
In the spirit of Mr. The school district chairperson there, could we move him up on the agenda? Is that possible?
It's fine with me. Yeah.
You wa- That's okay. That's up to you. I didn't expect, we get 2 for 1. That's even better. That's fine.
So we'll keep as is. Okay, so public requests. Any in the crowd or online?
Nothing online.
Nothing in the crowd? Okay. Close that and we'll do the approval of the minutes of the previous board meeting held on April 18th at 5:15.
Move to approve.
Discussion? No? Roll call?
Commissioner Engel, Commissioner Rollins, Commissioner Vogelsang, Commissioner Wright. Motion passes.
Okay, and on to regular business. We'll do the salary and benefits analysis, and I believe that will be our general counsel.
Evening, Madam Chair, Commissioners. As the Commissioner recall, our office was recently directed to prepare a market analysis of benchmark salary data for the district's 3 employee positions, the executive director, the facilities manager, and the administrative assistant position. As part of this process, we had the opportunity to review quite a bit of online data and work with your professional staff, Brianne and her team, who were very helpful in assisting and compiling public record data that was available both online through some of the particular special districts, as well as through some other agencies that compile public record information regarding public salaries and benefits for employees. And I will admit and confess to you, it was difficult in providing somewhat of an apples to apples comparison, only because no 2 districts, no 2 cities, no 2 positions are exactly identical. We did review a number of job descriptions and positions for the executive director at a host of other special districts, as well as some department director positions in various cities for rec directors, as well as administrative assistants. Those 2 positions were fairly easier to compare as it relates to the various agencies, that being the executive director and the administrative assistant. The facilities manager position was a little bit more difficult to compare, only because our facilities manager, based on the job description for that position, does quite a bit more than simply manage the district's facilities. Our job description also includes certain contract and project management responsibilities for that role. There were other facilities manager positions that we did review that were more closely aligned to management of facilities, as well as some other contract or project manager positions. But again, there was not exactly an apples to apples comparison of that particular job description and title. We do have a spreadsheet in the back that lists a number of the different organizations and agencies that we reviewed. There were some others that we also did look at, which were not included on the analysis in the backup, but there were other agencies that we did look at. We do have a average salary range for those 3 positions included in the backup, as well as a average salary for 2 of them. The only reason we did not include a specific average position for the facilities manager, again, because it was a little more difficult to identify a specific benchmark for that one position, given the divergence in responsibilities for the individuals who perform that work. We did have a range that we would suggest as it relates to that position, excuse me, that position giving the duties and responsibilities. The numbers speak for themselves. I'd be happy to answer any questions if the board has any questions. Otherwise, again, the opinion really does provide our analysis as it relates to reviewing these various jobs, duties, responsibilities, and the associated compensation.
Discussion, Craig?
Thank you. Thank you, Jacob. I think you guys did a great job. A couple thoughts on it is kind of the next steps is that we're a small group. There's 3 positions. Two of the positions are, in kind of in a range that is similar to others, so we could be over under a little bit, but the key position is, the executive director role, and we're under, so I'd like you to, we can either talk a bit more about what that pay should be now. I would like the opportunity to kind of take a closer look with the auditor of what is current pay to make sure I understand it. And I'm still kind of struggling through some of that. And I talked to Raquel about it. And so that's one part of it. But at a first blush, I think it warrants that the executive director role, we should move that pay up into the range. I would probably start at the bottom of that range, maybe a little bit lower, with the goal to try to get it to the average. Now, as far as other ones, it looks to me like they're, we're not far off, so I would make no adjustments on the other ones. So that's my recommendation. We can either talk about salary now, or we can defer it to the next meeting and just reconfirmation of where everyone is at exactly right today.
Agenda. I think Craig summarized it very well, and agree with him in terms of the facility manager and the executive assistant. I would be comfortable in making a suggested increase at this moment to begin trying to get it closer to the average. And the figure I had in mind was closer to 125. Make a motion, I'll be happy to do that. I just throw that there for consideration and discussion.
To have one question, Brianne, I know this is tugging at you, but you're worth every penny. So we have a cap for your position. Is that correct?
That is correct. Our agreement said not to, I think it was 150. I don't remember exactly, but I think it was 150 was the cap. So we'd have to adjust that too.
Go ahead.
It occurred to me that in bringing Brianne's compensation up to around the average, that we set up a multi-year increase. In other words, so much one year, so much the next, so much the next. I'm very comfortable with Bob's number as a start, but I would like to see sooner rather than later that Brianne be brought up to the level that other people in similar positions are making. So with that in mind, I thought maybe we would do, say, 120, 125, then another step up for 2023 and another step up for 2024 to bring her compensation in line.
And I'd like to, do we have an educational, the CEUs or advanced degree incentive in our policy?
We do not have a policy, but in the past, the district has, approved like funding the program that I took last year. But we can certainly look at adding a policy for education reimbursement.
Just like to incentivize, everybody to, do some CEUs or get a graduate degree if there's anything available in your range or Melissa's or Joanne's. I just think the more education that we have, the better off we all are.
Yeah, and I don't disagree, but I think moving forward, the first thing to do is to try to get closer to the average. And then between now and next year, I think we ought to establish some benchmarks that are necessary, much like Sue said, in order to keep that moving forward. I don't have any issues with taking an annual review like we've done with the others with their job descriptions. But I wouldn't want to tie us to any certain benchmark right now without having done some research on what educational objectives we might want to see Brianne achieve. I mean, the last objective was that, what is it, that program that you just recently took, Brianne, and successfully passed. But I think that over the time that Brianne has certainly grown in this position, and I respect her achievements in moving us forward with our objectives, and I certainly feel like the 125 would be an appropriate starting place. And I'd make the motion that we approve the increase to 125,000.
Second.
I'm just looking at the numbers here, at what they gathered here in terms of annual budgets for the different organizations and the pay that the ED is getting. I mean, she's getting the equivalent to somebody who's doing a $3 million budget right now. Right? So do we feel like 125 is enough? I mean, somebody who has an $18 million budget has a $197,000 salary. So I feel like we need to be closer to that lower range than 125, in my opinion.
May I couple things is I tend to agree. I think generally, and I know in our work group that I'm in, we would, if we brought someone into the group who is substantially lower, we'd at least bring them up to the minimum. But I would also say that, it's a total compensation package is what you have to look at. And you do have to consider, that's what threw me off a little bit on the payroll numbers. And what I would like to do is be sure that we do this on an annual basis. So come January 1, everyone knows exactly what the number is, and we validate that number, and whatever it is for each of them. And I can go back and check it with the payroll, so it's consistent going forward. That's a separate issue, but the overall amount, one way or another, I think we need to, the executive director needs to get there. It doesn't have to be today, but it definitely needs to move up and track. And I think if you want to go to either one's fine with me, but I think the 125 number, if you do that, then you really should get yourself geared up to get to the minimum of the average within a short period of time. What that is, I don't know. So
You're saying that she needs to be
I would put her at
closer
the
on that
minimum.
lower range, then why aren't we doing that tonight?
Then
If that's what we all think that she
yeah,
needs to be at, I'm just looking at the numbers on the salary, and that's purely just salary, correct? That doesn't include
car allowance or anything else.
anything else, right? I'm just trying to figure out the reasoning behind doing 125 now, and then in a short period of time, whatever that may be,
Right.
go up to 145 or whatever it is. That's my question.
It's difficult to know what these different tasks are with these different districts that we're talking about. And I think the reason I came to this choice was that getting a nice adjustment now and getting in place the opportunity for future adjustments as well. This will be a nice jump already. And with the benefits that we've put in place, retirement plan, car allowance, and education benefits that we do have. I felt comfortable at 125. If the board feels like it should be higher, I certainly would not object. But pick a number.
Anybody else? I mean, I'm trying to be on par because obviously we were too low And she was, introductory into the position, obviously, and had to learn over the last couple of years. But I think she's proven herself as a true executive director, and going above and beyond in terms of the job that she's done. So I want to make sure that, just as the other positions, that they are within that range is what I'm trying to get
Well,
at.
the thing that we don't know is the tenured individuals in these positions as to where they started, how long they've been there, and unless Jake has some idea, because somebody that's been doing a position like that for 30 years is obviously going to be a lot further along than someone who's been doing it for what, Brianne, 5 years? Pardon? 2. Okay. It seems like you've been here forever. That's how comfortable we are with, your guidance. But as I said, I mean, I just thought the number was a reasonable number given where we are and where we're going. And then we can establish a track in the future. But got to start somewhere, and I'm open for anybody's input.
If I recall correctly, the previous executive director, their last compensation was in the neighborhood of 130, 135. Correct me if I'm wrong. A number of 130 or 133 sticks in my head. So maybe that's what we should use as a starting point now, with a proviso to say in the next 6 or 8 months, step it up. So we would be, say, at 135 now, 150 at the end of the year, or beginning of next, at first quarter of 2023. But at least we have some kind of benchmark to work from. And this way we can see our way clear to getting Brianne to the point where other people in her position are.
I think we ought to pump the brakes here a little bit and evaluate where we are. Langford had been the director for some 25 years. And I have no objection to increasing it to that amount, to 130, 135,000, but I think it should be an annual thing. We shouldn't be dealing with this in 6 months just because we're in a race to get to the top. If it pleases the board, I'll withdraw my motion. If that's possible, Jake.
It's your options, your motion.
Okay, well, I'll withdraw my motion and let the board, someone else make a motion as to what amount they would suggest.
Correct me if I'm wrong, though, the 133. Now, I'm totally in agreement with whatever we all come with, but the previous executive director did not have any benefits. Is that correct, Murph? Did not have any benefits, any car allowance, any insurance, any retirement? I'm sorry, I can't hear. Right, right.
He was not part-time. Full-time employee of the district. Now, he may not have worked full-time, but that was the intent. He was available just like Brianne is. And and Bob was in the office over at Sugar Sand, if you could find him, or he was at Burger King, one of the two. But I think that from what I'm hearing, the number is going to be 135, and unless somebody would like to suggest an alternative number, I think that's where we should be.
I make the motion that we establish our executive director's compensation for 2022 at 135. And also with the stipulation that there's a review in 2023, in the first quarter 2023, and on an annual basis thereafter. Let's get that part implemented so that we know where we're going to be going forward. Also, I think as part of that, we need to remove the cap of 150. So that's my motion. Yeah. Should I, if you want me to, I'll condense it. Okay. I move that we make the executive director's annual compensation for the current fiscal year $135,000 per annum to be reviewed again at the beginning of 2023 and to be reviewed thereafter on an annual basis, and also to remove the cap of $150,000 annually.
Slightly. All good with the first part. The annual cap is part of a contract. So can we just take care of the contract separately?
If I may, if there was a second to Commissioner Engel's motion, and the motion, if there was, and the motion were to pass, I would propose bringing back a contract amendment to embrace the adjusted salary plus the performance reviews beginning in the first quarter of 2023 and annually thereafter, and to eliminate the caps. We would provide a contract amendment to align with the direction of the commission this evening.
Friendly amendment. I would propose, Steve, that this adjustment be for a 12-month time frame, and we review it again, 10 months hence, so that this is an annual thing that we do rather than. Right. Well, I just want to make sure that we're not doing this adjustment every 6 months, so, okay. All right.
You need a second. You need a second.
We need a second. Joanne, roll call.
If I may, just so I'm clear, the increase be effective immediately, if I understand, correct?
Commissioner Vogelsang?
Yes.
Commissioner Wright? Yes. Motion carries.
And just as I stated, we will bring back a contract amendment consistent with the board's discussion and direction, obviously subject to Ms. Harm's review.
Can we do a change in the agenda items from 3 to 2? Is that okay? Okay, so we'll go ahead and do that. We'll adjust our agenda so that we can go ahead and do the school district project partnership discussion now. Brianne?
First, just let me say thank you for all of your confidence in me as the executive director. I appreciate the comments and appreciate the vote tonight as well. Tonight we have Mr. Frank Barbieri here tonight, as well as general counsel from the school district. So thank you for coming. The school district has a number of projects that they'd like to partner with the district on in the future. And I distributed a list of those projects last week. I think tonight the goal is to discuss, before we start discussing the details of any specific project, is where we are as far as a partnership and what we would like to get out of these partnerships for our users. So I think that tonight the conversation kind of focuses on timeframes and mutual use of facilities. And so we distributed a copy of the Don Estridge agreement, which we currently have with the school district. We maintain those fields, and the timeframes at 5:30 work for our user groups. And those are some of the things that we would, I think the board would want to see consistent, but that's what the conversation really is geared for tonight. So I also think Commissioner Ernst, who has been speaking with the school district on some of these items, may want to weigh in before we open up the conversation.
Brianne said, this is not about the variety of projects. We know the school board can do projects and can do many of them at one time. However, the discussion I thought was to foster the partnership and the opportunity with the school board to have a general agreement. And that general agreement, the things that we want, I defer to Bob has mentioned several times of different things that worked and didn't work. And I thought maybe we could just structure that framework a little bit, have a general agreement that later we can add on projects as we see fit, big or small. With the principles of the agreement being okay, that we're making agreement with the school district board, not necessarily with the individual school. So that was the thought process. I wanted to flush out something, get a straw contract together that I thought we could kind of mutually draft. And then if we get agreement on that, that puts it behind us. Then we can take one project as we see fit as it comes along, and things will change, so there may be an immediate need for something. They all serve the same purpose, recreation for our community, and where we can help the school board and encourage recreation in a safe way, I think is one of the primary purposes of why we're here. So with that, I guess, Frank, would you like to add any words to that, or?
Yeah.
So I just want to thank you because over the years, you've been very supportive of the schools, and
We just need your name.
Chair, but the record does not.
I should know
Thank
that.
you.
I should know how to do that too. My name is Frank Barbieri, and I currently serve as chairman of the Palm Beach County School Board. But more importantly, I represent the schools in the Boca Raton area. So, which is why I'm here, not as the chairman of the school board, but as the District 5 representative. So I just want to thank you all because we have had a great relationship with all of you. As you know, we just built 3 brand new schools in the city. Down at, Verde, Addison, Meisner, and Blue Lake, which will open in August. And although there's a lot of more things that we need in our schools here in the city, I'm reluctant to bring it up at board meetings because my colleagues are already whatever Barbieri wants he gets for schools in Boca. So, but there are some critical needs, and Craig and I, Commissioner Ernst and I have talked about those. So, when he and I discussed, if we could come up with an agreement, that's why I asked the general counsel to come so she could hear the discussion. But if we could have a working agreement that you all agree to and our general counsel's office agrees to, then we can start moving forward different projects that you see fit to fund for us in the schools in the city. But that's why I'm here, just to encourage you to get that template agreement, prototype agreement in place so that we can start moving forward. Commissioner Ernst and I have been discussing projects for several years, and we just never get anywhere. And I know you're all busy, and certainly we've got our hands full at the other end, but whatever you can do to get that agreement in place would be great. May I?
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Sean Bernard. I'm general counsel to the school board. And as Frank just said, I'm here to listen and hopefully gain some information from you all on what it is that you'd like to see or have the district agree to in terms of terms. And then, of course, I can take that back. We have a whole department that works on these issues, is excited about partnering with you all on these items. And so I'm hoping to be able to gain today what it is specifically through your discussions that you're seeking to work out as a general concept, if you will, and then kind of go from there. So that's what I'm hopeful to hear today, so that I can take that back and then we can come back to you all with something that may work.
Okay, thank you. And Frank, thank you for all your hard work for our community. We truly appreciate it. So we would like to, Bob, do you have any specific feelings on this, or?
Of course.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Barbieri. I know you've been on the school board for some time, and as our chair said, we thank you for your service and for being here today. We have had a great relationship with the the schools. Don Estridge, I think, being the template that I'd refer to. Most of the issues that are most concerning is one is access to the facility without having to go through the school, and from a safety aspect, separating our recreation facilities so that there's a safe distance between the children and the facility. Don Estridge is a prime example of how this can work because of the fact that you use it during the day and we use the facilities in the evening. And I want to be certain that one of the issues that we want to avoid is a conflict with the principal in terms of the hours of operation of the facility. We had a issue come up with Don Estridge where we were being asked to adjust our starting time from 5:30 to 6:30, which was not a comfortable time for the youth sports groups to use it, because we want to get the younger kids out there early and then and off the facility. So that would be one thing that'd be absolutely necessary in the evenings during the week that don't conflict with any of the school schedules that we have access beginning at that point. The other scenario that I saw as problematic was over at, I guess it was Boca Middle, where Boca Hoops was using the field house, and the relationship between the school administration there and Boca Hoops was a little strained at times, and I'm not sure whether that was an economic issue with the principal being able to maybe lease it for more money to someone else, even though Boca Hoops had that interlocal agreement with the city. The other thing, and hopping back to, and by the way, we did light those basketball courts over there at Boca Middle, which Boca Hoops uses or did use. I just want to make sure that the administration of whatever schools a facility is built, that the template says that there'll be cooperation between the district and the users, so that we didn't have to come back and revisit the hours, because I think that's really important. The other thing is I was able to get Chairman Lynch at the time to I apologize for that. It's my daughter. He always calls me the most inconvenient times, usually asking for money. I forget where I was now. Oh, I know what it was. Chairman Lynch, when we did the maintenance of the facility over there at Don Estridge, all the maintenance costs were on us. And I think that I understand, that, we'd be developing land that you own, but I thought a greater percentage of maintenance costs should be shared with the two bodies. I think Tom Lynch gave us $20,000, and it was like getting blood out of a turnip to get the $20,000 that we got out of him. But he was a better negotiator than I was. So I'd be looking for some participation in a greater participation in the maintenance cost of the facility. Since it's a joint usage, it should be probably a joint percentage of participation. And ideally, if we were to do something, maybe even consideration in CIP, improvements that we put in there, and then some type of an agreement if all the financial risk was on us, is that if the contract was canceled prior to a certain time frame, I'd want to have a cancellation. I don't want to call it a penalty, but with one other organization, school that we have I think a 10-year timeline if the contract had to be canceled, and it was mutually agreeable that if it were after 5 years and it was a 10-year agreement, that we would have a 5-year clause that said, you'd reimburse us for 1/2 of the cost if that were to happen, so that not to prevent you from doing any expansion, but like what happened over at Henderson High School, there were, we eventually built 2 soccer fields over at Henderson High School. And that lease ran out after 20 years. And then if we had negotiated that, Henderson's, moved their high school and built it on the soccer fields while they continued to keep the other school going. And then when that was finished, they would be able to move. They didn't have to close the school in order to do the construction. And I'd want some kind of a assurance of that nature, that if that were to happen and you had to expand, like at Spanish River, for instance, and as our county grows, I don't know how it's determined when you build a new facility, but if you had to build a new facility and we had built let's say if we had built a world-class soccer field over there between Broken Sound and the current facility, and then if you needed to have that space to build on while you were keeping the other portion going, without shutting down that school, you're doing your construction in another part of the area, which would disrupt whatever recreational facility we built there. Those were some of the concerns that I had. And then Brianne, this is probably on you, is with the maintenance costs, we'd have to talk with the city about who's going to do the maintenance on those facilities, because I think that it'd be natural that we ask the city to participate, but we shouldn't do this without making certain that they would be able to accommodate the maintenance that was necessary at the school. Let's say if we were to build something, and I know that the other concern too, and this is just to the commission, is that we have to, without getting into any of these projects here, and there's some very worthy projects on this list, we have to keep in mind the obligation that we're looking at down the road over at Ocean Breeze and Ocean Strand as far as our facility. So putting in place an agreement would be good for the time then when we do have that opportunity to spring into developing something for Palm Beach County Schools, which I'm certainly in favor of. As I said in the beginning, so long as the deal is the best deal for our community, and not only our community, but for the school district as well. And those would be the only concerns that I have.
I think you covered all my concerns as well. Anybody else, Craig?
So I don't want our friends at the school board to get discouraged. I just want to break it in a very simple terms. It talks about access. It talks about, who's building it or funding it. And it talks about who is going to maintain it. Okay. So, Bob mentioned Don Estridge and the 20,000, and I have a bill here from the city for 2 months of work, and I annualize it out. It's for us, it's about almost 200,000 to maintain it. And we pay for that. And so we're paying for it through the city. And I'm sure the principal over there is not aware of the 200,000 we spend annually to maintain Don Estridge. And that's just an estimate looking at annualizing 2 months of bills here. I just want you to know what it is. And then I think we can, it really depends on what the project is to determine who's going to maintain it and how we're going to maintain it. We know that the school board has great resources for building things. So, we're looking to you, whatever it is we're a funding source. But the ongoing part of it, if we agree on access points and things like that, is how do we maintain it going forward? And it really depends on what is it. Some things are going to be less maintenance than other things. We certainly invested in a number of, fields to be AstroTurf with the highest quality. It's an inventory that is available, all our stuff is available for you too. We just have to work it out with the city. So we have a third relationship that's not here right now, and that is the city. So whatever we structure, I think if we structure in kind of a general concept, we can get our parts together, and then we'll go back to the city and take another look at it, what they need too. So that was the general concept. So all the things that Bob mentioned, I think those are lessons we've learned. I think we can incorporate them one way or another in the a master agreement, and then we'll go from there.
First, Mr. Barbieri, I want to thank you for your service in what has become an increasingly difficult job. We don't have the turnout at our meetings like you have at yours. And sometimes that's a good thing. But what I would like to see in general terms is some kind of template agreement that we can use and apply it to each project. So if we have, just for example, another project at Don Estridge, that we could take a template agreement, apply it to that, and go forward, as time goes on with other projects in the same vein. I think it would save us a lot of time. I think it would delineate what our responsibilities are, and I think it would help us work better together, so that everybody knows what their responsibilities are and what their rights are. And we could just, as we go along, whether it's a situation, as Bob brought up, where a school is building on a project that we built, like a soccer field, because they're rebuilding another school. Let's be able to take this all into account and have a master agreement that we could apply on individual projects. That's all I got.
Easy.
Thank you for coming. I do have a question because I'm a resident and I represent not only the city residents, but also the district residents who are not in the city of Boca. I know on your wish list, there was Spanish River High School. There was something on there for some improvements. Are there any other schools that are not in the district per se that you want us to help you improve?
My understanding was that the district and the city limits were identical. So do you have, you have farther, you take in farther west, so you have some schools farther west that the district would encompass, your district would encompass? How far out west do you go?
The Turnpike.
Okay, so we have other schools. Del Prado, for example, is outside the city limits, but it's I guess it's within your
It is.
jurisdiction.
Yeah.
Yeah, Del Prado is a very old school. I never looked at that one because I didn't think that was something that you all would be able to work with us on. I didn't realize that you also, your district encompasses that area, but certainly I can get back to our planning department, Chris Garrison, and we can take a look at and possibly Ms. Bernard can work with you all to figure out where your district line is so that we can see which schools fall within it that are outside the city limits, because I'm not sure what else we have over in that area. J.C. Mitchell, of course, is in the city. Calusa, I believe, is in the city. So I'm not sure how far Whispering Pines would be outside. Yes. Just Del Prado, probably.
Del Prado's in the district though.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if there's any east of the Turnpike other than Del Prado that's outside the city limits, and I don't believe there are. Hammock Point is on the other side of the Turnpike, so it wouldn't be there either.
I'm not sure because Calusa is on the north side of Clintmore, and that's one of our boundaries. So what's available for us is anything that is in the Greater Boca Raton Beach and Park District, which is basically from the beach to the Turnpike, Hillsborough Canal to the Clintmore, excluding Highland Beach.
Okay.
So that it's a pretty, squared off footprint, but we're limited to that.
Okay, understand. So, certainly we can take a look at Del Prado and see if I could just respond to something that you all said while I was, I realize there's been some difficulties at Don Estridge. When there's a change in administration, all of a sudden the new principal thinks that they have the opportunity to change the agreement. That I assure you that, that Commissioner Ernst and I've talked about that, and whatever agreement we come to, obviously it's not going to be at the whim of the current administration at the school, whether or not that agreement is followed or not. So hopefully the new agreement will, will specify, and the principals will be told that this is the agreement we have with the Beach and Parks District and the city, and it can't be changed just because you feel like you want to change the hours. So certainly I understand that that was a concern with Don Estridge, and we can certainly work around that so that doesn't occur again.
Mr. Barberry, thank you very much. It's good to hear. I thought that's the way it was, but it was a little testy when we were going through those negotiations. But a couple of things that, I propose, I think Craig touched on it. The city has a recreation master plan that we looked at needs for the community, and they do have a facility over at DeHornley, which is described as sometimes Spanish River across from the new library. There's a acreage over there where they're phase 2, they're calling it, which originally it was supposed to have some rectangular fields, some sand volleyball, some pickleball courts. So we don't know where that's all going over there, but that would be kind of add to that regional nature of that facility over there. And as I think Sue said, or Craig, our facilities are available to, any of our recreation facilities are available to you and the school board to use at any time. That didn't, it's not already something else scheduled. I know Spanish River High School has used Patch Reef in the past for their soccer teams to train. And now that we have a nice turf over there, they're even more welcome to be over there because it's a great facility. The other issue too that we deal with is that there are some facilities that have the open space that we might need for a rectangular field. But the issue there would be lighting, and that would be important to us to be able to light those facilities. For instance, Omni backs up to another neighborhood, as does Spanish River High School. So I think there's thought at one time between the high school and Broken Sound, there's some space there where you could put some training facilities in there. But with the winter sport, soccer being somewhat of a winter sport, and we have early nighttime hours, having lights on the facilities makes a facility much more usable to us. And so that would be something that we would have to take into consideration wherever we put, if we were looking at rectangular fields. That may not be where we're going. Could be a nice new gymnasium somewhere that might benefit everyone. So without getting into any specifics, those are just some concerns I have, is that we coordinate this with the city so that we don't unnecessarily duplicate things that they're planning to build or want to build. And maybe if we build something for the schools, then that would supplant whatever the city might want to, and we could consider doing something else. So there's a lot of variables, a lot of things that we can consider. If we can get just a standard agreement that we could just plug and play, that would be ideal. But those would be the limitations and the concerns that I would have.
Anybody else? Nope. So I guess the next step, so based on this, do you and your team want to take what kind of we've discussed here and do a template that you can come to us with to discuss with our executive director and general counsel? Is that? Yeah.
Yes, that we have a whole department that we can get in contact between the lawyers in our office, as well as the director, Chris Garrison. I think her name was mentioned earlier, where we can work kind of behind the scenes and hopefully plug in some terms and put together a template of some sort of agreement.
I think we may need a motion just to authorize Jake to, negotiate or work together to develop this master agreement. And to authorize our council to do so.
Second.
Yes.
Madam Chair, we certainly will work with the General Counsel's Office for the school district to the effect consistent with the board's direction. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Okay, so on to number 2, which is now number 3, Gumbo Limbo Tower Project and ADA parking. Brianne.
Commissioners, this item was on your agenda a couple of meetings ago for consideration. It was, the discussion ended after it was decided that we would ask the city for updates on where they were at the tower project. They've provided some updated information about that, and which we've included in the agenda packets. Overall, the tower, they don't plan on looking at the tower again for another 6 months as far as where it will be. As far as pricing and things like that go, they don't anticipate big changes, and they would look at that in 6 months is what the idea was. This particular component of the project was to renovate some ADA parking in the parking lot, which really shouldn't have been combined in this project. It actually probably would have been better just left with the renovations that we approved this year in our budget to do at Gumbo Limbo. At the end of the day, we're updating the bathrooms to be ADA compliant. So the restrooms will be ADA compliant. And I think the goal would be to get some access points through the parking lot into the facility, which this would do. So tonight, for your consideration again, is a request to approve the $81,612 renovation at Gumbo Limbo to add the ADA parking in light of the fact that the tower project will be delayed for at least 6 months. It could be longer, and we would anticipate something like this increasing in price as we wait on it. So.
Okay, so I think that this project is something that's needed, and I think I don't think it should be connected to the tower in any way. The tower is its own project, and I don't think we should use this as, I think the city it's nothing they can control in terms of the pricing of the tower at this point. I think this is a necessity for people who need it. And I think that if we're making the bathrooms and we're renovating the bathrooms to be ADA compliant, I think the parking lot should be done as well. So I think this is something we should approve tonight. Do you have any opinions or discussions on this?
Yeah, I would agree with you. Appears, based on what I'm seeing here, to really be a separate issue from the tower. And from what I'm seeing here in this Q&A, it looks like the tower is being postponed indefinitely. I mean, we're saying 6 months. I think we're being very optimistic. The way things are going, it might be another year before things settle down enough to rebid that project. So I would like to make a motion to approve the capital request.
Discussion? Go ahead, Chris.
I would like to discuss it. Look, I'm very supportive of the ADA, hand in hand, bathrooms, parking lot, stuff like that. But let me be clear, this Gumbo Limbo facility has been like this for at least 25 years. So there's nothing new there. What's changed in the 25 years that the tower that was there previously is no longer there. Okay. And it started, before I even got on this board, to build this tower and to rebuild the tower. And it was very simple in its concept. To me, it was just like, okay, we're going to, in fact, the posts are sticking up out of the ground right now. And they've been there for a long time. And so the thought was, let's finish out the tower, and it needed to be ADA also. Okay, which again, I'm supportive of the concept to be ADA. As a community, I think it's a good thing that we should do. But how we get there to ADA is a different question. And they are tied together from a standpoint of how you spec something. And so what was put out in a spec for RFP, we really have had no input on it. And that's the frustrating part for at least me, is that should we be surprised that something that we thought would cost I thought it was about $400,000 or $500,000, turned into 1.3 million. And then, from a third-party consultant, it kind of shifts around a bit. Now it's the 2.6 million with one bidder. And the requirements are that you have to have a job that was done where you built a structure 3 stories high to bid on it. And the structure itself is enormous in its design. And, it's not the only way to build something. Do we need Elon Musk to come over here and show us how something is to be built? I just question it. And I think that it would, there's no back and forth or collaboration on it. And that's frustrating. And what is even more frustrating for me is the fact that we have someone who in the community to honor someone who is more than noteworthy to honor on it. And we've all agreed to it. The city council has agreed to it. They've come to those opening of the boardwalks. And yet here we are today, nothing built, nothing has moved. So yes, I'm very frustrated with the whole process. And this body has been funding Gumbo Limbo for an awful long time. And so to me, we ought to have some collaboration with it. And I get it that the city has got many projects going on and I'm sympathetic. All I'm asking for is someone to come here and tell us why the tower is not built and when will it be built or how can they better do it? And I think this response is pretty old. This is, mid-April. Okay, things are dynamic and changing. Since then, interest rates have gone up pretty substantially. So I see other things that are going on pretty significantly. All I want to do is I think we have a commitment to the family to build the tower. And I think this piece of it is just another piece of it. And I do not support, moving forward with a lot of funding for Gumbo Limbo when none of our projects are prioritized. So that's where I'm at with it. And so I would vote no.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Craig comes up with some damn good arguments, to things. And I can't disagree with anything he said as far as that goes. What are we talking about? Additional parking places here? Was it 3 or 4 ADA? 3 ADA parking places. The only way to get this tower built is to go at the bids and whatever and do a responsible bidding of this, and then us step up to cover whatever we need to get it done, if that's the case. Because I agree with Craig, it's embarrassing that a family who wanted to leave a memorial to someone and has given the funds to do that, we're still in neutral. On the other hand, Craig, I'm going to support the motion.
That is that here the pumps and piping project was a big urgent project. Okay, and there was an urgency for us to fund an extra amount of money just so it could start. I don't even know how long has that been started since the last time we approved the additional funding.
I heard that they mobilized in December. I think we approved the funding several months before then, and they've done some work since then, but I know the water and the waves have been really problematic. So it hasn't progressed, but they anticipate still completing it by the end of this fiscal year.
What year did we meet with the city? I think it was, it's not several months, it's years we're talking about.
Well, Pipes
Okay,
and pumping
so-
has been going on since I started with the district. so I
Okay,
don't-
so, well, that's my point is that, okay, so there's a rush to do an ADA parking lot here. I get it. It should be a heck of a lot easier than the pumps and piping project, but that was held over our head that, oh no, we're not going to start the pumps and piping project until we have your, another 100 and some odd thousand on a $3 million contract. Nothing started. Took years. Okay, this is just all about communication, honestly, and it's probably fine, but you know what? It's about communication. And so, I'm not very supportive of, doing things without a good communication, because I think even before Aaron, you and I got on this board, it was somewhere came along about, our land, our project. And, this is a community. Okay. And this is a community project and it's community funded. And so I just want to see how we can get this done. And I think the options are pretty obvious. Okay. We wait until the city says it's okay, but I don't know on the design, they're willing to change it or ask for value engineering. we can offer to facilitate it and do it, give it more attention maybe. Or we can relocate it if that's makes sense. But I think the best option is to build it at Gumbo Limbo. And I think the best option is to give it some priority and to get it done. But there's no, communication of where are we with it.
Well, I think there is communication. 2 weeks ago, I mean, it's kind of in limbo at the moment with the market the way it is. I don't think they can predict the future at this point and say, this is when we'll be able to get it down to $1.5 million or whatever. And this is when we'll be able to build it. I think it's difficult for everybody to do that at this point. And yes, it is very, very frustrating, but I think a lot of projects are frustrating for a lot of different people right now. I don't think we should penalize, um, people who need ADA compliant parking spots at Gumbo Limbo because we want to leverage that to get the tower built for the city. I think it's an important project that needs to be done. It's going to have to be done no matter what. So I think we should just approve it now, get it done now, and discuss things and communicate with the city in terms of the tower. I think you're right. I think there's a lack in communication, but I also don't think we should pay $3 million for a tower. That's irresponsible use of taxpayer money, in my opinion. And yes, it is very important to that family, but maybe there's other things that we can do. So that's my opinion. Steve?
Greg, you did bring up some very important points. The pumping station in particular has been like a thorn in my side. This started when I was running for election for my first term in 2012, and we're now in 2022. So we're talking about an entire decade. But holding up this little project to take care of the others, I don't think is productive. What might be productive would be to get the appropriate members of city staff in front of us on a regular basis for an update for these projects. Let's hold their feet to the fire. And even if they say nothing is happening, let's know why nothing is happening. Okay. They do need to communicate with us better. But that said, I don't want to deprive one group to get what we need from somebody else.
Greg, we don't often agree right out from the get-go, but I do agree with you that I'd love to see the tower built. And I've talked to my son, who's a structural engineer, though, and he says that number is just crazy at this time. You listen to the experts, they say that the supply chain is going to go back to being problematic because of situations in China and what have you. So I agree with Aaron that we do need to eventually, we do need to approve this for the ADA and then go forward and keep pressing, like Steve says, keep pressing staff and see if we can't get something more definitive than this explanation that we've gotten on paper.
Just want to mention to you is that this also includes accessible ramp to the boardwalk too. So, I mean, it's not like it's strictly the ADA parking lots. It does give more individuals access to the parking lot. And I'm as worn out with the pumps and piping and the other things, but I can't do anything about those. I can do something about this and supporting this motion, get these ADA spots built. And I mean, you guys, you and Craig are the great communicators with city council. So, I mean, communicate with them and let them know of our frustration with this because we're all exasperated with the delays. But let's get these parking lots, parking spaces built and the ramp put up there so people can access the nature walk on that boardwalk.
Call the question.
Did it? Do we have a second? We did. Okay. And go ahead.
Commissioner Ernst,
Yes.
Commissioner Engel, Commissioner Allen,
Yes.
Commissioner Robinson. Commissioner Ray,
Yes.
motion passes.
Okay, so that's our regular business. Approval of payroll and invoices, Craig.
I'm Chair, I'd like to make a motion for payroll and invoices of $2,131,332.01.
Commissioner Ernst, Commissioner Engel, Commissioner Rollins, Commissioner Robinson, and Commissioner Ray.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, reports and discussion items. Legal. Legal counsel. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, me again. Commissioners, just a brief report tonight. I wanted to mention that Melissa and I were out at Patch Reef Park last week, and I want to thank Dwayne Dougherty. He also oversees the grounds here at the swim center, but Patch Reef Park looked exceptionally nice, and they've done a lot of work to move a lot of those maintenance vehicles out of there. So it looks much better. So thank you to the staff. Thank you to Dwayne and his staff out there for that. We received one response to our grant writer RFP on Friday, and actually they mentioned to me that they had been to several others who they were the only submitter as well. So we'll review that and we'll come back next week with that at the next meeting with that. And also this Friday, we are anticipating bids for the carousel project. So we should have that on our next agenda as well. And I just want to thank you all again for your confidence in me and look forward to keeping this thing moving forward. So thank you.
Go now.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have just two quick items. One of them is a follow-up to the comment that Brienne just made regarding Patch Reef Park. And this is actually on behalf of my law partner, Sam Gorin. Yesterday, Sam and his wife had the opportunity to take their bikes to Patch Reef Park, and he asked me to convey to you all how much he enjoyed the experience and really commend the board and the district on the park itself. He really said that the trails were quite nice, quite clean, accessible, and they really had a nice time out at the facility yesterday. So Sam did ask me to convey that to you all. The other item I wanted to mention is that in reviewing our contract, our engagement with the district, along with the other agreements that we do review periodically, we came to realize that our contract with the district expired at the end of 2021. So with your collective permission, we'd like to bring back an amendment to our agreement at the next meeting, which would essentially be an ongoing agreement subject to the annual budgeting process by this commission. So I certainly ask for your consideration at a future meeting, and with your permission, we'd like to bring that back for your review at your next meeting. That is all I have this evening. Thank you all. As long as there's no objection, we'll bring back the amendment and we can consider it at the next meeting.
No objection, I assume, from anybody.
Thank you.
Anybody?
Okay. Look, thank you. I think partnerships are a good thing to do. So what we've done tonight with the school board as a starting point is terrific. I look forward to seeing what the Y does out at Patch Reef. I think that's an opportunity for a partnership. I also do not want to, discount the other partnerships we have in the community and how we do those, among those with the city. So going back to, and I'm not done with the tower, I think that we should consider, and I'm happy to make a motion, but I think we should consider asking them to rebid it with a redesign and value engineering it. Because I'm convinced that the design of that tower is a bit, difficult for anyone to bid. And I don't think you're ever going to get it's unrealistic the way it was structured. So that said, there's just got to be some effort on it to be done. And I realize the city has their process of how they want to do it. But can we not ask them to take another look at the whole thing of redesigning it to a structure that is maybe not with a ramp structure, maybe it is with a funicular, maybe it is something else, but ask the builders who build these things to do it instead of us telling them what we want. And I say that because as I recall, there was a tower that was built in Martin County, is it, Brianne? Pinellas? Recently constructed in Pinellas. Okay, and completed. Okay, not in the format or design of what we have. So Boca is unique, and I understand that, but this is not the only, tower structure, and that's not the only way to design it. There are other ways it can be designed, and it can be expedited. So I would like to make the motion that we ask the city to rebid the tower and to look at other alternatives and invite, contractors to give additional value engineering techniques to meet the basic requirements of going up so high and being ADA accessible.
You also mentioned earlier, Commissioner Ernst, about the requirements of some of the bidders to submit. Do you want to look at those too and evaluate them?
If we were taking the project, yes, but if it's the city taking the project, I don't want to be the cook in the kitchen. I think they should do their own job and make the best decision, but I want them to really be a little bit more flexible with it. That's all.
Maybe we should have the city put out an RFI. Is that applicable here? Yeah. This is the city's design, am I correct?
They had this design. They had a consultant design this, an architect engineering firm.
Okay.
So they've gone through all that.
Maybe they should go through it again, because if Susie's son looks at it and says that the whole thing is crazy and we're getting astronomical numbers, maybe there's another way to look at this, and maybe we do need a whole new design.
Do we have the bid specs for that, the design that you could get to me? Would you send that to me, please?
I'd like to second Craig's motion, please.
Motion is because I'm confused, like you want them to rebid it, but is it rebidding on the same design that they already have, or you want them to redesign it? Or that's what I'm confused about, because if they're rebidding the same design, I don't understand what you're asking for that's different. That's what I just want clarified.
There has to be an opportunity to reevaluate the design. And I'm not in a position to tell them how to design it. And I don't think they are either. I think you should talk to someone who builds towers and who has experience with building towers, and they should do it. So maybe it is.
You want the consultants to go back and do other optional designs, because rebidding it is rebidding it on the design that's already done.
Brianne, maybe Brianne can help clarify it.
Just quickly, just tonight, by the approval of taking out that component of the ADA parking, the bid specs have to be changed anyway. So at this point, the city would have to change that and remove that part, and however it impacts the tower. So I think it warrants looking at the bid specs in general, like Commissioner Ernst was saying, and see if there's anything else that they can do to change this and make it a more
Design that's already done.
of the tower. But
Yes.
I don't know if that impacts he's saying if a contractor looks at this, they're going to bid. Let's say Susie's son takes a look at this. He could submit a bid and say, I would do it this way, and I could save you this X amount of dollars. You'll still have the same strength, you'll still have the same design and the look, but we would use this type of wood, or we would use this type of brace, or we would, change whatever. But they may be able to make suggestions to value engineer it in the bid process. Correct, but there may be some similar things that they could change. Yes, it will be the same design.
Why does it have to be the same design? I mean, I got the impression from listening to Craig that he was saying, you know, maybe we just need to start from scratch with this and get some other ideas in there, value engineer whatever we're going to do, and then put it out to bid. Because it doesn't, I didn't see the bid specs, so I don't know how they were written, but I know that how many responders did we have? One. So there must have been something there that prevented the others from bidding. So that's what I would, and I thought that's what Craig's motion was. Take a look at the design. Yeah,
Back to the consultant and say, take a look at the design and see what you can change.
but change consultants. If this is the design.
Right,
he
so they're
came
not
with, yeah.
sending, so I just want to clarify, so they're not rebidding it straight away. You want them to look at the design first and see what they can adjust on the design first.
Aaron, I
That's
think,
Craig's motion.
yeah, I think it's kind of a chicken or egg thing, you know, so it doesn't matter if you can either want to redesign it or you want to go to the contractor to give it. The basic requirement, it has to be so high, it has to be ADA accessible, and it has to fit in the square corners of what's existing there. That's it. You know, the rest of it, how you get there and how you build it is got to be collaborative. That's what I'm trying to say. And I think we've designed something and spec something and put it out to bid is near impossible. That's what I'm.
Out the original bid with that specific design in mind when they send out the bid?
Yeah.
It's what the people bid on. So
About is, so you send something out to bid, it's on a specific design. So that's what I'm trying to get at, is that, do you want them to change the design that they're sending out to bid? Or do you want to take out the design completely and then just have them say, here's our parameters, then send it out to, you see what I'm saying here? Like, cause you're sending out
It's
something to
either
bid,
or.
it's a specific design.
It's either or to me. One way or another, you have to allow for input rather than saying, this is the structure I want. So it's got it, the design has to be flexible enough to change, to be value engineered out by someone bidding on it. Or you don't give the design, you say you have to meet these basic requirements and build a tower. It's one or the other, but I don't think you can say, okay, here it is. This is our design, bid exactly like this. This is a very unique structure, you know, and so go ahead, Brianna.
can I just make a suggestion that maybe I could talk to Municipal Services, Michael Calvert, talk to them about the bid specs and talk to them about the other projects that were done like in Pinellas and get copies of those bid specs to them. And maybe we could all set up a meeting and discuss why that such design wouldn't work at Gumbo Limbo, or and see if we get a better idea of why this is the design, because the staff feels pretty confident in this design. They feel confident in how it's been value engineered. So maybe we could discuss why some of these other things that other places have done would not work here. Is there a code issue? Is it, you know, fire has a lot of weigh in on this project as well because they need access. So maybe there's specific things that happened during this process that made this project more costly than other municipalities. And we can discuss all that and compare them to other projects that were done and see if there's any way to change this at all and come back at the next meeting with a report on that.
If I could just follow up on Brianne's comment, just to keep in mind, this is more an issue for the city than for the district, but from a procurement perspective, if the city were to go out and seek a new design, that would require going through the CCNA process under the statute to engage an engineer. Nothing wrong with that process. It only just takes time. I mean, it's a cumbersome process that requires 2 rounds of reviews by the city, one to qualify, followed by a review of proposals submitted by the pre-qualified firms. And that's specific when you're engaging a professional service provider, such as an engineer, to provide the tower design. Once the design is prepared, you wouldn't have to go through that process for the construction. But if the intent is to revisit the design, it may require some additional procurement procedures for the city to go through.
I think Brianne's idea is good because I don't think from our side, it doesn't look good saying we don't like the, you know, we're not happy with what you did. We want you to change it. We want you to go out and rebid it and we're not happy with it. I think going into discussions and asking them why this specific design was done and understanding that a little bit more and getting some explanation might be a good idea in terms of just discussion and understanding why they are where they are, rather than just saying, we want you to change it. Yeah.
My bad.
You know, you're absolutely right. We've been talking about this thing and frustrated with it, but when's the last time they came here and explained the problem to us? They haven't. Okay, so there's the communication issue that we're talking about. But something, maybe there's some explanation they have that will help us understand the reason for the delays. Maybe in our discussion, we can sort out something that they haven't seen. Maybe they're too close to the project and without discussing it with us. I mean, it may not be important to the city and overall scope of things, but to us, it's extremely important because we made a commitment to this family and we want to see that commitment upheld. And so let's get somebody here to talk to us about it, you know, but I still think that they're, you know, without looking at the bids, maybe there was something that they were too narrow, too focused, too difficult. 'Cause otherwise there should have been more people that would want to look at this project. And then I would look at Pinellas County and see why they built theirs, how they built theirs. There may have been some similarities to the problems that they had to encounter that they got over. So
Me and Brianne can go have a meeting about, would that be okay on your end of things? Rather than having somebody come here and not really having a good back and forth, a smaller meeting in discussion might be something that's. Is that okay? Yeah. Steve?
Before you do that, though, I agree with Bob. That was going to be my comment, is to research what they did in Pinellas County and have the city also participate in that, because there could be something that would be helpful.
Water tables, there's a lot of different factors that could have made it, you know, a different cost or a different build. So we could look at that and see. Yes, yes.
Just as a general rule, I think the commission should be updated by the city on a regular basis in person on the pending capital projects. I mean, it's nice we get responses. You know, they put it down on paper. But like I said before, sometimes the city's feet need to be held to the fire and they need to be impressed with the importance of the project. And the tower is a perfect example. The pumping station is another example. You know, these projects end up taking, instead of months or a year, they end up taking year after year after year. And the family involved with the tower is certainly, you know, if I were them, I'd be jumping out of my skin. So we need to have some kind of mechanism where the city understands that these projects aren't to be put on the back burner because the Beach and Park District is involved. That, you know, we have skin in the game, as they say, and we need to protect our pending investment and, you know, and be apprised of what's going on a regular basis.
Okay, that Brianne and I go and meet with city staff? Yep.
Okay.
in the first 3 terms I had on this commission, we had somebody from Parks and Rec at every meeting, whether it was Mickey Gomez or the superintendent out of his supervisors. I'm not saying that that's necessary at this time, but I think it would help improve communications if we had somebody from the city here at our meetings.
Withdraw the motion, but
Okay.
so I think you need that withdrawn. You don't need a motion to go talk to them. So have at it. I'll be ready with my motion next meeting.
Give us a little bit of time, okay?
So I'm not done.
Go ahead.
So look, I for anyone who's watching this thing, it's been a learning lesson being on this board, but I feel very strongly of the importance of the tower And I do feel that if I do one thing on this board, is to get something built and done here. And that tower is important. My kids were on that tower. I'm sure Bob, Susie, your kids and grandchildren have been on that tower. I really don't see it as being, sending someone to the moon. This is not difficult. So I hope that you have great success in getting that. But I also see the value in the Gumbo Limbo Park as a community resource. It was started by, really with Gordon Gilbert and this board leading the investment and doing things there. And it was really with the volunteers that are doing that. So we can never take that away. And I hope that, the city works out their agreement with the Friends of Gumbo Limbo, that it is good for everyone going forward. And there's always some tension there to do that, but that agreement is part of this. It needs to get done. And we need to know where we're going with this tower, and it needs to be pretty prompt on what we're doing and how we're doing it, because we've had long enough time to look at this. So that's my take on the whole thing. And I hope, I know it's an uncomfortable discussion, but I think it's a worthy discussion because we do have a family who has been waiting for quite some time, and it was never intended to be like this. So that's that. Far as other things go, I guess I would say, as we approach the Ocean Breeze project, I look forward to hearing more. We saw the first step of that with the master development, and we'll see some of the planning for it. But the opportunity is going to have to come forward where, what is it that we ultimately have that we can realistically do? And please do not underestimate that I do think the city should be intimately involved in whatever happens there, because we have no idea what's going on out at the golf course. There's no one coming here telling us how they're going to redesign it, but I understand that they are working towards some level of redesigning it to make it more easier, friendlier to play. And before we do anything to build a new golf course or a component of golf at Ocean Breeze, we really need to understand it and listen to what the city sees from their perspective and how we can work together, because it has to be permitted with the city. Whether it's our property or at the east side or the west side, it's all our property. So we have to kind of work together. And I'd like to see the city, to a point maybe this summer, that we have something that we can present in front of them, and we'll have to work with them of how they're going to be involved in it. And it may be a pretty big lead because we have to get it done. So that's it.
I agree with Craig, and I think I said this once before, is that there's probably going to have to be some synergy between the two facilities. If we get golf over at Ocean Breeze, there's probably, it's going to be something that's going to have a value added to what's going on over Boca Country Club. I don't know anything about the redesign over there, but I know to make it more playable, it's probably going to have to do some things. And I'm certainly comfortable in talking to the city about our plans, and I would ultimately love to see one manager of both facilities, different checkbooks, but one person that could coordinate activities one versus the other. And might make things go easier for the administration and the revenue source for the two. This past season, I've been to a lot of different cities for tournaments, and on the rectangular fields with the round ball. You know what sport I'm talking about, Aaron? And then I'm at Patch Reef a week ago and watching a game on on the south field. And the way that we were playing on the furthest east, and a ball goes over the goal into the banyan, or the sea grapes. And then the player goes in there and disappears for about 10 minutes and comes back out with the soccer ball. And then this past weekend before last, I was at over in Venice for a tournament. And I think I showed a picture to Melissa and maybe Brienne of some backstops, netting, I should say, that I would want us to explore with the city, since it is their park. We can't do anything over there except what they want us to do. Some netting behind the east end of the fields, both on the north and south field, and the same thing on the other end toward the parking lot where the balls are going into parking lots. They're not obnoxious looking. They slow. They pick up the pace of the game, because if you're waiting for the soccer ball to come out, it's in the bushes or in the canal over there, as the case may be. I just would suggest that we explore the cost of those and talk to the city about the feasibility of doing that. I think it would be an enhancement to the facility, and I think the players and the coaches and the spectators would appreciate that. And that's all I have. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Susie?
Okay. Brianne sent us the information about the YMCA summer programs that they're going to have a open house for anybody who wants to work for the summer camps. And I have to report that a lot of my soccer buddies are very interested. And so I thank you for sharing that with us.
I just want to thank Brianne for all the work she's done for this board. And, it's been a true pleasure being able to communicate with you on a regular basis and you having the patience to hear me out. And I look forward to however long I serve on this board, that you're here with me and for years beyond that. So thank you. And you've just done a great job. So I just wanted to bring that up. And I think I've said enough for tonight.
One more thing. I did walk with Melissa and Dave for the disc golf. We went over to Sugar Sand, and I tell you, to me, it was very enlightening to learn more about disc golf and see what the opportunity is at Sugar Sand. Much of the area we looked at was the northwest corner, which I think is a nature area, or not, but it's all nature. But what it did, a couple of things, quick observations are, it's very inconsistent over there, from the picnic tables to everything. And there is an opportunity for disc golf, which would, to me, be pretty easy. It also warrants just some general cleanup. There's a lot of, brush and stuff that to me is somewhat of a fire hazard. And I would suggest that we should explore, getting a survey to see how and where we could lay out some kind of pickleball thing without removing any trees. Disc golf, not pickleball, disc golf. But we should really explore it, because it's an easy addition to the park, honestly. And there's already trails throughout there. There's some little paths through there that could easily accommodate it. And mind you that there's some mounds of clay from the baseball fields over there that shouldn't be there. It's just an opportunity that I think is pretty easy to work around and kind of weave into it. But whatever the starting point is to make that happen, it would be a good idea to get going on it.
That it's an opportunity that we have to look into, but also the environmentally sensitive areas aren't really supposed to be cleaned out. Like the dead branches and trees are supposed to stay there, I believe. So we need to make sure that we discuss it with the city and make sure that, what we do is according to how you're supposed to do it and even like the shrub areas, necessarily. So it's part of the environment. So we don't necessarily have to clean everything out. But we have to do it according to how you're supposed to do it with the environmentally sensitive areas.
Area that in the northwest side was not designated as environmental, where we walk through and everything. So it seems to me appropriate, but better yet to me is that's all nice, but it's still a fire hazard. So,
Well, I think that's something we should discuss with the city.
Yes,
Absolutely.
that's fine.
And if they deem it a fire hazard, then,
they sh-
but it's something that they maintain for us.
Well, in that spirit, there are some routes and paths that didn't seem like it was very well maintained. There's some stuff that I would say is just not, to me, could be better maintained. And so it does warrant some worthy of looking at. When I'm walking across a wood chip trail and there's a root that's the size of half the size of my arm stretched across it, to me, it's a tripping hazard, never should be there, and it should be removed.
I don't
So
know. It's
there's
a
lot of
nature
maintenance.
area. I'm not sure 100% if that should be renewed. It is a nature area. Keep that in mind. So there are going to be roots and things like that. So
Personal safety comes above nature area, so you just can't have a flat out hazard, or don't use it.
something we should discuss with the city, absolutely. But I
Sure.
don't think necessarily we need to go in and just flatten everything that's there.
Not saying that.
Right. Okay. um, so I have nothing. So go ahead.
Sharon,
Commissioner Ingram? Commissioner Rollins? Commissioner Vogelsang? And Commissioner Ray?